Christian minister named Charles Swindoll, and the title of it is Setting the Attitude of Your Attitude. The longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts. It is more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than success, than what other people think or say or do. It is more important than appearance, gift, or skill. It'll make or break a company, a church, or a home. The remarkable thing is that we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace for that day. We can't change our past. We can't change the fact that people will act in a certain way. We can't change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is to play on the one thing, on the one string we have, and that is our attitude. I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. And so it is with you. We are in charge of our attitudes. And that's what this is all about. So, our attitude is a result of our beliefs. It comes from our beliefs, from our belief systems, and really how much faith do we have and trust in a higher power and in the universe. I know I've said this a number of times, but Einstein once said the single most important question we can ever ask is the universe a friendly place? And that to a large extent might determine the attitude that we take into every situation that we have in our life. And the awareness that we have about ourselves in relationship to a higher power can really determine our attitude. And if we don't like, I'm going to talk about this a little more later, if we don't like what it's showing us, we can change our attitude. We can be more self-reflective. We can recognize that we might be carrying old patterns into our present day that aren't helping us grow, that aren't helping us get to wherever it is in life we'd like to be. And so when we become more self-aware, we can move through some of the filters in our life and see the reality that we're facing in a whole new way. And for me, one of the best examples that I've ever seen of this is the movie Groundhog Day. And most of you must have seen that movie, and Bill Murray keeps reliving the same day over and over and over again, and he brings the same attitudes into that day over and over and over again. And then finally, one day, he realizes that the only way he's going to experience a different day is if he becomes a different person, and that he's not going to be able to change it on the outside, but he needs to do something, I forgot his character's name, but to do some work on Bill Murray. And so when he realizes that and does some internal work, then his external life completely changes. His attitude changes his life. So I want to give you another example that I thought really fits into Mother's Day also. I read this story in another Chicken Soup book the other day, and it's a true story about two women that are really close friends, and they both get pregnant around the same time. They both give birth to boys at the same time, and both of the boys are born brain damaged. So obviously, it's not what either of the women hoped was going to be the outcome of a joyous occasion like that. And one of them is a religious Catholic person, and she says to her friend, "I'm taking my boy to Lourdes." And she scrimps and saves for a long time to be able to do that. And it makes life difficult for her and difficult for her family because of all she's doing to take this little boy to Lourdes. And finally, she has enough money, and she goes. When she comes back, her friend sees her and sees the little boy, and the first thing she realizes is that he really isn't any different. But she's got to go to her friend and speak to her. So she goes to her friend and she practically whispers to her. She said, "Tell me, did it help?" And the first lady says, I didn't dip him in the water. And her friend says, "Why not?" You know, remembering everything she did to sacrifice to bring this child to you know, the healing waters of Lourdes. So she asked her, "Why not?" And the first woman turned to her and she said, "Because I love him the way he is. Even if he will never be the way I dreamed he would be, I love my son." And the point, or one of the points of that story is when she got in love, when she got there and got in touch with how much she loved this little boy, her entire attitude towards this situation changed. When her attitude changed because of the love she had for him, she realized there was no need to put him in the water. And you know, when I read it, what I thought to myself was how interesting, because whatever level it was that she realized that he didn't need to be healed, she did. And she let that happen. You know, Joel Goldsmith is a New Thought writer who wrote that everything in life is determined not by our external conditions, but by our consciousness. And he said, you know, that the Spirit of God is recognized only where it's realized. And you know, he's saying that God is everywhere, but if we don't realize that, then in essence we're not really recognizing that God is there. And so he said, you know, so if you go into any situation in your life and you're expecting a rotten outcome, if you expect a rotten outcome, he said, how can God be there to respond to you? How could God be in that situation and respond if your expectation is that you're going to have a rotten outcome? And he said, you know, it's like saying electricity is everywhere. He said, you know, but that really has no value to you to say electricity is everywhere if it's not connected in some way that it's going to help you. And when I read that, I thought, you know, Ernest Holmes said something really similar. He said, you know, everything that we know now about electricity existed in Moses' time, but it didn't do Moses a whole lot of good, did it? And we need to know and to make whatever that is useful to us in our lives. And you know, and again, Goldsmith talked about what I just did, that our expectations determine what we're going to see in our life, and our expectations and our attitude are linked, because what we expect creates the attitude that we take into a situation. So if we go in, like I just said, with a bad attitude, there's no way we're going to have a good outcome. And so I read something I thought was really cute that I'm sure we're all going to be able to relate to. From Mary Manning Morrison, and she, in one of her books, she said, "What I see starts in me. What I see starts in me." And so here's the situation. Thanksgiving. They're having a big family get-together at Thanksgiving, and I guess her mother was doing the cooking, and her mother is a really good cook, and Mary is kind of tiny. So Mary pigged out. Mary ate a lot. And in fact, she said, "I knew I shouldn't have eaten as much as I did. Even dessert, I told my mother, give me a small piece. She gave me a big piece. I ate it all." And so when she was leaving, she just felt so fat. I mean, there isn't anybody here that hasn't felt that on Thanksgiving. You feel so fat that you can't move, and you feel uncomfortable, and you can't wait to get out of your clothes, right? And that's what she was thinking. I can't wait to get out of here and get in a robe. And as she was leaving, this get-together, this family get-together, her sister-in-law came up to her and said, "You look like a butterball." And, it's really great for a woman's ego. Mary got really upset. Didn't say anything, but she got really upset. She was absolutely crushed, and she couldn't sleep all night, and she kept thinking, well, I know I'm petite, and I've gained some weight, but I don't look that bad, do I? And so she gets up in the morning, and she drives over to her sister-in-law to confront her. And she does, and she said to her sister-in-law, "You made me feel so bad. How could you have said that to me?" And her sister-in-law said, "What did I say?" And she said, "You told me I looked like a butterball." And her sister-in-law said, "That isn't what I said." And Mary said, "What did you say?" And she said, "I said, would you like a butterball?" It was a joke. We were all so stuffed and so full, the last thing anybody wanted was another piece of turkey. And so I said to you, "Would you like a butterball?" See, it was a joke. And Mary realized again that what I see starts in me. And so what she talked about in her book, her attitude leaving the party was, "Oh my God, did I overeat? I feel like a pig," and all of the other stuff, that we've all said about ourselves doing that. And what she realized, her attitude was that she was condemning herself because she felt fat and out of shape. And because of that, what she heard from her sister-in-law was Mary's thinking, not her sister-in-law's thinking. It actually affected what she heard. Her attitude made her receptive to hearing something totally, absolutely different than what her sister-in-law meant. So you all know how much I love Eric Butterworth, and Bob here, who's going to do the concert on Friday night. He had some tapes that he loaned Becky and I had never heard Eric Butterworth speak. I had only read him, and he actually speaks as well as he writes. He was quite a guy. And in two of his books, he tells a story in two of his books about somebody who is terminated, somebody who's fired from their job, and he's sitting at his desk in real deep despair and thinking to himself, "I've worked here 20 years and they're firing me. Where am I going to find a job at my age?" And as he's doing this whole pity party with himself, he notices there's a spider crawling on his desk. And so he absent-mindedly brushes the spider off his desk. And what happens, he sees the spider as it's falling spin a strand, just one strand it spins, and it's able, because it spun that strand, to swing really gracefully and hit the ground with grace. And when he sees that, his entire attitude shifts like that. He starts to think to himself, if a spider can move so easily back into the flow, how about me? How about me? If a spider can do it, can I do that too? And what he starts to realize is that his good doesn't come to him from the outside, but it comes through him on the inside. And so he needs to look at this situation in a different way. He needs to change his attitude. And what he starts to do, he does a lot of work, and he starts to realize that one of the things he's always wanted to do that his job didn't enable him to do is work. Is write. He always wanted to be a writer, and he takes up writing, and between the money he made, he got a lot of stuff published, the money he made from writing and the pension he got from the company, he wound up living better than he ever did when all he had was the job. And what it took was just a change in his attitude and his perception about the situation, and he was able to live in a whole different way. Ernest Holmes, who is the founder of the Centers for Spiritual Living, once wrote, "Expectancy speeds progress. Therefore, live in a continual state of expectancy. No matter how much good you're experiencing today, expect greater good tomorrow." And so, what he said is, it's not selfish to want to have a really good life. It's not selfish to want to have good come into your life. And if you do your spiritual work, if you're willing to do that, and whatever it is that you want to try to manifest doesn't hurt anybody else, it's fine, and you can have it, and you will. And one of the things that sometimes blocks us is negativity, and we need to become aware when we're being negative. And sometimes it can become, when we do it too much, it becomes a habit and a way of life, and we don't realize it. And what we need to do is to get off automatic pilot when that happens. And for me, I know when I start having stuff that I'm not crazy about coming into my life, I start to look, what am I putting out there? What am I thinking? What am I saying? How am I being towards life that I'm getting all of this stuff back that I don't really want? And when you start to do that, you can really monitor what it is that you're putting out, monitor how it is that you're affecting other people, and change that attitude. So I want to give you one last example, and it's a story about a fellow who's just sitting on the road that leads into the town where he lives, and he's just kind of taking in the sun and relaxing, and somebody comes up to him walking towards the town and says, "Hi, do you live here?" And he says, "Yeah, I do." And he said, "Well, I'm thinking about moving here. What are the people here like? Can you tell me what the people here are like?" And the fellow says to him, "What are the people like where you live now?" And he said, "Well, most of them are kind of mean, and they're petty, and they're closed-minded, and they're not really pleasant." And the fellow says, "Well, I think that's what you're going to find here, too." And so the fellow leaves. And this other guy still sits out in the sun, and a little while later, somebody else comes up and says to him, "Hey, I'm thinking about moving here. Do you live here?" And he said, "Yeah, I do." And he said, "Well, can you tell me what the people here are like?" And the fellow again says, "Can you tell me what the people are like where you live now?" And he said, "Well, yeah," he said, "they're warm, they're kind, they're loving, they're compassionate. I really love the people where I am now." And this fellow says to him, "Well, I think you can expect that's what you're going to experience here." And the point being, the attitude that we come in with is the attitude that we're going to find. The negative attitude is going to attract more negativity, and obviously a positive attitude will do the reverse. Our attitude determines how we interface with life. And so I want to close with a quote from Gandhi, who said, "Keep your thoughts positive, because your thoughts become your words. Keep your words positive, because your words become your behavior. Keep your behavior positive, because your behavior becomes your habits. Keep your habits positive, because your habits become your values. And keep your values positive, because your values become your destiny." God bless you. Happy Mother's Day, and I hope you all have just a really wonderful week.